to me, and I'm really thankful to be here today because I'm looking at rain and I'm not shoveling snow. So thanks a lot to the organizers for inviting me, or else I'd be once again shoveling snow in April, which gets really old. So again, he said my name. I'm Susie Oliver from Vitrolife, and I was an embryologist before I joined Vitrolife, and I've been in the field of assisted reproductive medicine since 1990. So today I'm really excited to talk to you about a way that you can improve your IVF success through using the EmbryoScope. A little about my company. It is a global company headquartered in Sweden, and it develops, manufactures, and markets products to be used in the field of reproductive medicine. From the beginning of the company, we saw a need to provide really high quality products for this particular use, and that's still very important to us. Our culture media, which is the nutrient solution that the embryos are placed in, was developed by the scientists to mimic Mother Nature, so that the media actually will be very similar to what the embryo would see inside the mother's body to be able to get optimal development and growth. We believe that quality makes a difference, and that is the critical component of our company's commitment to being able to improve pregnancy rates. And our vision is to help couples worldwide fulfill their dream of having a baby. So I'm going to show you in a minute a short little animated video, and it's going to talk about the EmbryoScope. It's going to tell you how we used to look at embryos in the lab and try to evaluate them, and then what the EmbryoScope can do. And then I'll answer and sum up by asking the question, should the EmbryoScope be used in conjunction with the genetic screening that Erin was just talking to us about? Slides. So in the old way, when I was an embryologist in the lab, what we would have to do is we would have to remove the dish of embryos physically every time we wanted to look at them under the microscope. So the first time that you're going to do this is you want to look to see whether or not, when you added the egg and sperm together, that it fertilized and created a fertilized embryo. And I don't know if you can see this at the back, but you're looking for the presence of these two little circular bodies here. And you need to see those two, and they must be together in order for the egg to become fertilized. So we would look here, so we go get the dish out, take it over to the microscope, look, write down yes or no, it was fertilized, put the dish back. And we would do that the morning after the day that you'd had your retrieval. The next time you might check in some labs, they would check later that same day in the afternoon to see if that fertilized egg had started to divide. This is a picture of two embryos, and they're dividing into two cells. And that's what we would want to see at about a day after you've mixed the sperm and egg together or done the ICSI procedure. But again, to do this, I had to get the dish out of the incubator, take it over, look, and then write a note and put it back. The next morning, I would come into the lab, get the dish back out, walk over to the microscope, sit down, look, write notes, take the dish back. So I hope you're picking up a pattern here. But day 3, go to the incubator, get the right dish, look, write notes, take the thing back. So with traditional IVF, you have to remove the embryos from their controlled environment inside that incubator to be able to look at them. Every time you remove a dish, you're exposing that dish and therefore the embryos to a small change in the temperature and the gaseous environment around, even exposure to UV lights. The embryos inside mom don't see a UV light, but when I'm in a lab, I can't work in the dark, so we're going to have some light in the room. Every time you expose an embryo to that type of change, it creates a real brief stress. And those stresses can build up and actually compromise that embryo's development. But it was what we had to do because we didn't have any other way of looking at the embryos. They also had to be done at very specific time points every day. Generally, nobody looks at embryos on day 4. Some programs do, but most of the time that's the one day you didn't bother them. You left them in the incubator. The morning of day 5, you would come in and hopefully see embryos that look like this. Erin showed you a bunch of pictures as well. This is 2 embryos, and this is what they should look like on day 5. There's too many cells now to count. Originally, I could go from 1 cell, I could count 2 cells, 4 cells, 6 cells, 8 cells, but now there's too many cells to count. And there are also 2 different types of cells. And it doesn't matter what they are, but the thing you might find interesting is this dark cluster and that dark cluster. That's the group of cells that's going to become the baby. The rest of this whole little bunch of cells around the edge, that's what will become the placenta. So what we would do as an embryologist is we would say, did it make it this far, number 1, because not all embryos can make a blastocyst. And that was a good sign if it made it to this stage. We wanted to look, like Erin said, how pretty is it? Oh, that one's really pretty. That gets the best grade. Well, that one's a little small. It's not that great looking. We're going to kind of call it this. But that's the only thing we had to do. Day 5 is also the day that selections are made. What embryo are we going to transfer? What 2 embryos are we going to transfer? What are we going to freeze? If there's surplus embryos, we like to maximize your money by putting embryos in the freezer for use further down the road. So a lot of decisions have to be made on day 5. In the old system, the only thing we would do, we could see this end result picture, and we could go back to all the notes from the other days. And from those, that limited bit of information, we had to make selections. What embryo are you going to get back? We got really good at it. Really, really good at it. But just because we got good at it doesn't mean it was as good as we could get. So again, the little traditional method, we really only had 5 glimpses of what that embryo looked like through that whole course of time. And this is just an illustration. We did not take pictures of these embryos. We just, in our mind, one person's seeing what they're seeing through the microscope. But basically, 5 snapshots. With the introduction of time-lapse technology into IVF, what that has allowed us to do is create a system that takes images of your embryo every 10 minutes through the entire 5 days. It grabs all those images together and creates a time-lapse video of the complete development of that individual embryo from the minute it's fertilized all the way till hopefully it looks like a blast at the end of 5 days. So instead of 5 snapshots with time-lapse culture, now we have thousands of images to be able to look at. Not only is this an abundant amount of information that we're having available to us, the embryologist can look at it any time. It doesn't matter if it's done at a specific time of the day, because the embryo gets left inside the EmbryoScope, which is this unit here. So this is the basic EmbryoScope equipment. And what it is it combines that culture incubator with a camera and a microscope. So the camera and the microscope are actually behind this screen. And this whole thing is as an incubator. So guess what? Every 10 minutes, images are getting taken. We never have to take the embryo out. We never have to take the dish out. From the minute we put your embryos in this little special slide and put it in that and close that door, they are never disturbed again until they're ready for transfer. So all of this information that we get, this continuous monitoring of that embryo's development, is being kept saved on a server. and all of the conditions inside this incubator are also being saved. Previously, we would just take the temperature in the morning, maybe another time during the day of that incubator. We'd check the gas in the morning, make sure it was the right gas concentration to keep the environment proper. But we really, other than once a day checks, we never really knew from minute to minute what was the condition inside that incubator. Now, all of the data, for every minute, the data is stored. Exactly what the temperature is, exactly what the gaseous concentration is. All of that creates the absolute best stable environment that the embryo can even imagine other than the mom. So now we're getting this amazing ability to look every 10 minutes at the development of the embryo, in addition to having the safest incubator environment. You're not disturbing the embryo. It's never getting exposed to the stress that it could be if you were taking it in and out to get these images. This is just a brief little video just to explain. Everybody's seen time-lapse videos. They show it when there's a storm system moving across the plains. They show it constantly. So you know what time-lapse is, but this is just what we would see if we were to look. So all of that information that comes from all of those videos gets transferred to a server, and then that is relayed to the computer workstations. Now, as I said, the embryologist can look at any point in time a day. They could look at the end of the day. They can go in their office with a cup of coffee and be watching videos. They don't have to be stuck to that microscope in the lab at a really specific time. The other great thing is now 2 people can look, more than 2, 3, 4, as many people as you want to hover around. You all can look and observe. Like Erin said, beauty contest is great, but what I see and what you see may be just a little bit different, and that makes it too subjective. By having the images available for a lot of people to look at, you get a lot more of a improved way to select the embryos. Everybody's on the same page because these images are very identifiable and easy to view. So you get this consistency that's building into your selection process. You also, with the software, have the ability to take up to 3 embryos, take their footage, and compare them side by side. What this is going to allow you to do is to watch the 3 that maybe you think look the prettiest or look the best, and watch them as they go through their movies at the same time, and get all the information that the system is providing to be able to just pick out those subtle differences between them. And that's a very powerful tool as well. Now, hopefully this one will work. This is a video, if it works, of a normally developing embryo. Oh, no, that one's not going to work either. I can't believe it. It's not working. Dale, this is frustrating. So it's a good thing that we got to see the one embryo that was developing normal. We'll go back and watch that one again because there's a couple things I'll point out. If we can. So normal division, it goes from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 by about day 3. And then it kind of goes through this organization process and it gets kind of glob-like looking. That's normal, believe it or not. Then it develops into this blast, and that blast kind of expands and contracts a little bit as you're looking at it. And it differentiates in the 2 parts of the 2 types of cells that'll become the baby and the placenta. And this would be a normal video. What we can also do with time-lapse, and one of the real benefits of the system is that, unfortunately, we won't be able to see this now. What we can see is when things aren't right. Like Erin was talking about with the PGS testing, you can determine when the chromosome's not right, even if it's a beautiful blastocyst. Well, a beautiful blastocyst can also do some really funky things between point A and the end point. And one of the things that it can do is it goes from that real pretty one cell that I showed you in the others directly to a 3 cell. There's no 2 in between. It goes from 1 right to 3. This is really easy to see when you're watching these videos. This event actually occurs sometime in the middle of the night, and I don't know too many embryologists anymore that come in and look at embryos in the middle of the night. Nor would you even catch it. If you did take a dish out and see this 3 cell, you wouldn't know that it was abnormal, because they will sometimes go 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's real fast. So if you see a 3, you don't know if that's part of that normal 1, 2, 3, 4, or if it's 1, 3, and then it hangs out in the 3 for a really long time. So this particular type of abnormal development has been shown to significantly reduce the potential of that embryo to even create a pregnancy. Most of the studies that are out, and there are multiple, show 0 implantation with an embryo like this. The problem is it will continue to divide, and you'll keep grading it, and it might even be one of the pretty ones, but there's 0 chance of that implanting. So the purpose of the whole benefit of the EmbryoScope is to provide you with all the information you need to make a decision about the best embryo that has a normal development pattern. And like I said before, when we all would look at embryos, what I saw might not be what you saw. And even if we saw something that was a pretty, pretty cell, Erin showed you that that's not always the whole story. So by looking with an EmbryoScope, we really can get the whole picture, the whole story. What you see is not what always the real story. I don't know if you guys can see that in the back of the room. These are not really nuns showing off their legs. They're sitting on bar stools. But it's important to recognize that the first images sometimes, whether we see them through a microscope, that they can be deceptive. So you want to get as much information as you can. Now, had you been able to see those videos, this one would have been the one that developed normally. It went right through the progression and all the steps that it should have. And what you see with the tools of that software, it creates this real pretty little color graph. An embryologist that's trained will learn to recognize that pattern as normal. Even from when all 12 of those embryos were on the screen at once, you can go, oh, that's a normal pattern. Whereas this one would have been that second video. This is the one that went from 1 straight to 3. And then it stayed at that for like half of the day, and it shouldn't have taken that long. And then it kept dividing. But it still made it to that day 5 step. But through the tools of the software, we see a totally different graph. And even from the back of the room, you guys can pick that those 2 color graphs are completely different. And the embryologist knows just very easily and quickly that had an abnormal division. I'm going to downgrade that when I come to selecting an embryo. This happens, and it shouldn't. There should be very little yellow showing at all and a lot more green. And that just visually gives you information. So he showed actually my equipment and some images, and indicated that we just look at them and to try to determine which one to transfer. And that is true. People might wonder, is the genetic testing going to give us the best outcome, or being in an EmbryoScope, using an EmbryoScope, going to give you the best outcome? And what's important is they're both really great. They both give you information that helps, but they're different types of information, and they're not meant to be the same. So the PGS, the screening that he was talking about, just addresses the genetic material of that embryo. And it asks the question, does it have the right number of chromosomes? Yes or no? A lot of embryos with the right number of chromosomes don't always make it to that blastocyst stage. So just having the right number of chromosomes doesn't necessarily mean you'll get a baby from that embryo. And in addition, that technique to get those cells out of the embryo is considered an invasive technique. You're cutting out part of the cells of that embryo to send off for analysis. So you have to remember that it does have that as a limitation. It still gives you great results. Time-lapse, however, is a method of analyzing the embryo development, and it is non-invasive. We're not touching the embryo at all, and we're getting all this information. So it can be used to classify the embryos according to their chance of implantation and creating a live birth. Laboratories that are using this will gather the data, and they will start to be able to develop their own ranking system and criteria for how to determine which of the embryos are the best in the group. And it's based on watching all of those development patterns. We know that 20% of embryos have abnormal cleavage division, abnormal events that happen. 20% is a lot. If you're only starting with 10, you know, that you've lost a couple right off the bat. So the only way to see these abnormal things happen, the only way is through the use of time-lapse. Because otherwise, you're just getting a single snapshot. You're not seeing the before and the after. You can't just scroll through and scroll back because it's only in your mind, in your head, right as you're looking at it before. So even PGS can't pick up an abnormal cleavage. So that in the best situation, you'll use the two together because they're not competing technologies, they complement one another. And I'll give you an example to show that. So in this example, the embryos were put into an EmbryoScope, and they did the PGS genetic screening. And the good news is she got 4 normal embryos back. Euploid is a word that means normal. So they got 4 normal ones, but she only wants one. She's already got a child at home. She only wants one. She doesn't want to risk a multiple pregnancy. How do you decide which one of those is the best? Well, because you've used the EmbryoScope, you have the footage available to go back and look and review, and you can use the clinic's ranking system of looking at the subtle differences between what you know are the normal embryos. And now you can pick the very best one that has the highest chance for implantation and transfer that one. And then the ones that are just a little bit less will be frozen for later use. And these were probably going to be just fine, but if you've got one that's done everything super right, then go ahead and transfer that. So using these two technologies together really will give you better choices for embryo selection and be able to allow you to have the embryo that's going to give you that baby. So to sum up quickly, the benefits of using the embryo, first benefit is going to be you have continuous monitoring and you're never bothering the embryo. It's in there for 5 days. You don't have to take it in and out, expose it to any kind of stress, and it's going to have prolific information being generated. Second benefit is it's safe environment. The embryos are in there. It's very controlled. All those statistics become part of your patient record. And lastly, I have something to show you. Whoops, I don't grab this. If clinics want to use this communication tool that we have, you can download an app on your iPad, and it allows the patient to actually watch videos, and I can show this later. They can go in the nurse's consult room or talk with a physician, and he can be showing them their embryos, their case, right here on the iPad. This is what they're doing. And you can see when you tell a patient sometimes your embryo quality is not good or the embryos just didn't develop, I kind of think maybe those are just words. They're not to us because we use them all the time, but I kind of wonder if the patient really has a comprehension of what we are meaning, and now they can see it. And if they can see it, they accept, regardless of what that fate of that embryo is, they accept it better. So it's a better tool for communication. These are the proven benefits from clinics around the world. In the video, she would have told you that we have, since this has been introduced, we have treated over 300,000 couples around the world with the EmbryoScope, and all of these are proven benefits to using it. We have a proven implantation rate that's improved. That means that more embryos are implanting that you're transferring. We have a reduced pregnancy loss. You're not having miscarriages. Again, you're picking up abnormalities and not selecting those embryos to be transferred. And that results in shortened time. So some of these benefits are the same as the PGS screening. But it's important to know that they are proven. We're not just standing up here and telling you about this nice fancy technology. This is proven to work and to help you achieve your dream of having a baby. So thank you very much for listening. Sorry for the technical difficulties. And if you have any questions, I'm out there and I'll be glad to answer. I have patient brochures you can take back with you as well. So thank you.